It took enormous success and the exhaustion and ultimately injuries from that exhaustion to open Arianna Huffington's eyes to the importance of wellness, to realize we not only need sleep and calm to get by, but to thrive. And in fact, as founder and CEO of Thrive Global, she takes that message to others, helping CEOs and CHROs of Fortune 500 companies extend their own purpose by extending employee well-being, a metric that's never been more important. Arianna, thank you very much for coming to the Purpose Power Summit today.
Thank you, Scott. Great to be with you.
I had just talked to Hans Vestberg, who I know you've worked with, and he talked about his 4 stakeholders. And you actually just deal with one of them in some respects, and that's the employee, and how important it is to sort of create purpose and well-being around employees. What was your insight that this should be your next foray in your life of entrepreneurship?
Well, actually, Scott, it started with a painful wake-up call. 2 years into building the Huffington Post, the divorced mother of 2 daughters, when I collapsed from exhaustion and burnout, hit my head on my desk, broke my cheekbone, and that was the beginning of this journey to study and understand that burnout was not just my personal problem, but a global epidemic. So I started covering all these issues at the Huffington Post exhaustively. But by 2016, I realized that I didn't want just to raise awareness, which of course I could have continued doing through a media company. I wanted to help people change behavior, help them go from awareness to action, because by 2016, and even more so now, we kind of know what we need to be doing around sleep or food or movement or the thoughts we hold in our head, but behavior change is incredibly hard. So I wanted to launch a behavior change product company that through technology could help people take these micro steps, these daily small incremental steps that could lead to healthier habits and a more productive, purpose-driven and healthier life.
How did we get to the place where, one, we did not recognize this for so long, yet now that we have, businesses feel as responsible for helping as individuals do?
Well, Scott, as you know, the pandemic has been a huge accelerant.
Sure.
The truth is that even before the pandemic, we had a terrible mental health crisis, we had skyrocketing increases in chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension, which are stress-related, lifestyle-driven. We had the World Health Organization 2 years ago acknowledge burnout as an occupational hazard, but it took the pandemic to get the attention of the C-suite, of boards. This is no longer just an HR issue. We are launching Thrive in many companies with the CEOs present, like at Accenture with Julie Sweet, at Pfizer with Albert Bourla. That would not have happened pre-pandemic. What has happened now is that CEOs, CFOs, boards have seen the connection between well-being and productivity and business metrics. So this is no longer a kind of warm and fuzzy HR benefit. It truly is essential for a healthy bottom line.
Yeah.
And even as you know, Scott, the SEC has issued this groundbreaking new reporting requirement for companies to report what they're doing for their human capital around recruitment, attrition, development. That had never happened before. All they had asked before about human capital was, how many people do you employ?
That's right. Right. And it didn't matter whether they were zombies or not, basically. I mean, I think this is a really interesting point and probably rests in this statistic, which you've talked about. And it's how in the 70s and in decades prior, presumably, 80 some odd percent of a business's value existed in its physical capital, in buildings, in inventory, in products. Today, that valuation is completely flipped, and it's the human capital that has the 80% value and the hard goods that have the 20% value. That's remarkable.
It is remarkable. And the fact that we can make a real difference to how employees show up at work is what is driving a lot of these offerings. We find, for example, with our product, that we need to be there continuously as a coach in your pocket to help you around all the things that increase your health and productivity, whether it's sleep, food, movement, gratitude, financial stress. But also, what we find, Scott, really moves the needle is real time stress interventions. Because the truth is that stress is unavoidable. You know, nobody can sit here and promise a stress free existence, but cumulative stress is avoidable. So we've launched in our app, and we're about to launch it next week within Zoom and WebEx, a 60-second reset feature based on the latest neuroscience that it takes 60 to 90 seconds to course correct from stress. It's actually an incredible finding uh, that in 60 to 90 seconds, you can release the cortisol hormone from your body, move to the parasympathetic nervous system out of fight or flight. And so the app, and within Zoom or WebEx, you can download it and have preloaded resets around breathing or stretching or reframing your problems or remembering what you are grateful for. And it's kind of amazing that these small interventions reconnected with more resilient, more unflappable part of ourselves. We call it the eye of the hurricane. And that makes a huge difference to how we show up at work and in the rest of our lives.
I think it's a fascinating thing that we need these tools. We need the micro steps, even though we somehow know better. Presumably, you knew better that you were exhausting yourself before you had your incident. Why is it so hard for us to actually take those steps on our own? Why do we need help like you provide?
Well, Scott, that's an amazing question because human beings, unfortunately, um, are not so easily moved to do what is right. You know, we need a catalyst. My catalyst was a broken cheekbone. Sometimes the catalysts are much worse. You know, it could be a heart attack, um, an event where that has catastrophic consequences. And even, you know, we talk to people, we even after a heart attack, after they say, I had this heart attack, I'm going to change my life, I'm not going to be living so breathlessly and frenetically. And 6 months later, they're back to how they were.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's imperative to have like continuous support and break it down into micro steps rather than big New Year resolutions like I'm going to work out in the gym for an hour a day, and then 3 weeks later you've abandoned it and it's harder to get back on the wagon. So we believe this continuous, daily, small, we call our micro steps too small to fail interventions is what makes the difference and leads to healthier habits. I can give you my two favorite micro steps if you want,
I
Scott.
would I would love it. I would love it. I did not get any sleep last night. I'm stressed today. I would love that.
Okay, why didn't you get any sleep?
I don't know. I was just tossing and turning. I can't say for sure.
Okay, well, we have a lot of solutions for that. We launched a podcast called Meditative Story
Yep.
that is really storytelling. Like you have an adorable son, Luca. I bet when he was little, you didn't just drop him in bed. You read him a story, you sang him a lullaby. Well, human beings, when they get older, need a transition too. So I recommend Meditative Story. We also worked with Audible and launched a series of sleep solutions, sleep meditations. My favorite that always puts me to sleep when I'm stressed is by Sean Combs, Didi. Uh, actually, doing this beautiful sleep meditation. So, my two favorite micro steps are how you end your day and how you start your day. So, I'm sure you, like most people listening today, don't have an end to their working day. You could stay up all night handling things. So, if you're going to be able to get a good night's sleep and not toss and turn, you need to declare an end to your working day.
Hmm.
And I mark this declaration through a ritual, which is turning off this thing, this phone, and charging it outside my bedroom. I know that sounds like maybe a huge micro step, so start with one night a week if you are not ready to do it every night, and you'll see the difference when you really put some distance between yourself and this repository of every
Yes.
problem and every project you are dealing with.
Yeah, you don't want to sleep right next to the thing that is creating the most anxiety in the world for you, do you? And yet we do.
Or distractions. And sometimes I know from myself, you can say, oh, I'll leave it on my nightstand, but if I wake up in the middle of the night, I won't look at it. But you do look
You
at
do.
it.
Yes. Absolutely. And what about the morning micro step?
So the morning microstep is much, much easier if your phone is not next to you. But even if you're not ready to abandon your phone for the night, start your day with 60 seconds before you go to your phone. 60 seconds. I'm not saying start your day with 20 minutes meditation, just 60 seconds to set your intention for the day before you go to your phone, which is what the world wants of you. What do you want from your day? Or to remember what you're grateful for, or to just simply take some conscious deep inhales and exhales, anything except going immediately to your phone before you're fully conscious, before your feet have hit the ground. Two simple micro steps. But they make a big difference in terms of bookending your day. There are hundreds of micro steps, but these two happen to be my favorites.
I think they're great. And I know I can imagine myself, picturing myself right now, launching out of bed, grabbing for the phone that is my alarm at the same time, turning it off as I'm stumbling into the day, and taking that time actually would be a rather pleasant start instead, wouldn't it? I wanted to say that, you know, as you pointed out earlier, that there's a lot of science that backs this up, and now there are a lot of large companies that are paying attention. You've worked with Walmart and Microsoft and Hilton and J.P. Morgan. What did it take? I mean, was it really a balance sheet look to motivate those large companies? And how should smaller companies, right? We're not all Fortune 500s. How should smaller companies think about implementing some of what you're talking about when they're not as resource rich, say?
Well, whether you're a tiny company of three people or a huge company with 1.8 million employees like Walmart, these are necessary tools because if your employees are stressed out, anxious, depressed, doesn't matter how many productivity enhancements and optimized workflows you give them, they are not going to be able to perform at their best. And I think it's this connection between performance and well-being that is making companies of any size prioritize the well-being and mental health of their employees, and recognizing, especially as we are talking a lot, Scott, about more diverse and inclusive workplaces, that when you're burnt out, when you're running on empty, it's very hard to be empathetic and bring out the best in you. And without that, it's very hard to create cultures of belonging, which are essential for an inclusive and diverse community.
I think that's right, and that's something I can recognize in myself, certainly. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us a little bit to do that examination and see what role we play in that and how we can make lives better for the people who work for us, and in turn make their contributions more significant.
And you know, Scott, what makes a big difference is all of us sharing our journey. Like if you decide to practice one of these micro steps, like starting your day with these 60 seconds, please write about it. Write about it for Inc. We would love to amplify it on Thrive, on our social media. You have no idea how much of a difference storytelling makes. Our app is full of stories as well as science-backed microsteps. Let's say if we are working with P&G employees, they're going to see stories from their leaders, their peers of what they're doing, and that gives them cultural permission as well as inspiration um, to set off on this journey.
So we would recommend then everyone who's listening here today to go to Thrive Global and see what's on offer there, correct?
Right, but also to share their story for Inc., for Thrive Global, for everywhere. At Thrive, we say ubiquity is the new exclusivity. We don't, we don't want anything exclusively. We just want these messages everywhere because we are in the middle of a cultural transformation. And anything we can do to accelerate it will make a huge difference in our lives, in the lives of our businesses, and society at large.
Arianna Huffington, important words. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Scott.